In this video, we're going to show you some of the situations that you'll face while printing and how to troubleshoot these situations. One of the first situations you might face is adjusting the position of the image on the egg. So, for example, in this case, if the image is too far forward, this is because when the tray goes in, the sensor senses the beginning of the tray and then sets the time for the beginning of the image. So in this case, the image is too far forward. So what you would do is you would go into your settings, you would go to the printer, and this first common settings shows here the trigger delay. So in this case, the image is too far forward. It's printing too quickly. So what you would do is increase the delay a little bit. So we will maybe increase it to 66, and this will move the image back and center it on the egg. Once you've adjusted the position of the trigger delay, you can check your egg to see if it is properly centered. If it's centered, then you have your first row correct. If you still need to change it, you can adjust the trigger delay forward or back until you get the proper centering. So when the tray goes into the printer, the sensor will sense the tray coming in and set the trigger delay, which will set the position of the egg. Now, in this case, if the printing is too far back, we would want to reduce the trigger delay. So we'll go to the printer and the common settings in the trigger delay. Now we will reduce the trigger delay, and as we reduce it, it will move it forward and center the image on the egg. Once we have the trigger delay set properly, we'll see that the image for the first row is centered correctly. But then we may notice that each following row has the image moving a little bit forward. This is because the egg interval is set too short. So we will need to extend the egg interval to move the last image back a little further. To adjust the egg interval, we'll go to the printer, and over on this side we have the egg interval settings. So we have it set at 41, and that's putting the image too close together. So we'll extend the image, say, to 43, and that should move each image back, and it should give us the correct positioning. Okay, and now we can print. Now with the egg interval properly set, we can see that each row has the image properly centered. We can set the printer to print the number of columns that we want for each tray. For example, we have it printing 3 columns right now, but we want to change it to print 5 columns. To change the number of columns being printed, we'll go to the printer and we'll go to the secondary settings. And here you can see the print column number is set at 3. So we will change that to 5, and we will set OK. Now it will print 5 columns for each tray. Once we've made all our settings and we confirm them and we try to print and we find out that the printer is not printing, well, before we can start printing, we go up here and push the start button. And now the printer is ready for printing. While you're printing, if you notice that one of the rows stops printing, it could be that the cartridge is out of ink. So to check if the cartridge has ink, just remove it and take a piece of tissue and put it to the ink head to see if the ink flow is flowing or not. In this case, there's very little ink, so it's time to change the cartridge. If while you're printing, one of the rows stops printing, there could be 2 possibilities. It's possible that the printer head could be dry or the cartridge could be empty. So to check, take the cartridge out and take a piece of tissue and check printer head, and we're not getting any ink, but let's try rubbing the cartridge, and we can see that the ink is starting to come out. So we know that this head is still good. It was just dry. So we'll put that back in. But if we were to have an empty cartridge, if we test it and it's dry, and if we rub it and it's still dry, then it's because the cartridge is empty and we can just change to a new cartridge. If you notice that the image is not clear enough, in this case the image is quite blurry, it's probably because the pixel setting isn't set correctly. So what you can do is you go into the system, and we see the printer head alignment is at 6 pixels. So standard should be 16. So we will increase the pixels to 16, and now we should get the proper resolution. You can match the height of the printing head to the size of the egg by these two buttons here, which will raise or lower the printing heads. Ideally, the printing heads should just skim the top of the eggs. But if you have a smaller egg and it has about a 5 millimeter gap, it will still be okay. If you have a larger egg and it raises the printing head, that will also be okay. To center the printer cartridge with the center of the egg, we'll use the tray alignment bars that are on this side, and you can adjust the bars by loosening these and moving the bar in and out until it properly aligns on this side, and then this bar you can set in or out to leave about a 2 millimeter gap on this edge, so there's a little play for the tray to move through. If the conveyor has stopped moving, check to be sure that the sensors at the end are not blocked. They will stop the conveyor. Or make sure that the switch is not off. Make sure the switch is open. When the printer is working properly, each of the printer heads will have a flashing red light to show that it's working properly. Now, if you notice one of the printing heads does not have a flashing light, it's possible that this circuit board may be damaged. Maybe one of the pins is damaged or something, but this circuit board is very easy to replace. Just turn off the machine, and there are 3 screws here. Remove these 3 screws, and the circuit board will pop out, and it's attached to the cable by this lock here. So open the lock, slide the cable out, take your new circuit board, put the cable in, lock it in place, and then put it back onto the panel and put the screws back in, and it will be ready to print again.